Who is the ventriloquist?
You're not real!
Better look sharp, you mugs! Scarface is back!
He first appeared in Detective Comics number 583. Our story begins on the island of Blackgate Rock. Many years before the prison was built, this land held a gallows where over 300 criminals were hanged. Eventually, a lightning storm destroyed the gallows, the death penalty was abolished, and Blackgate Prison was born. With its dark history, the prison was considered by many to be cursed. One of Blackgate's later inmates was a convict named Donegan. Donegan was serving a life sentence for murder. One day, books were being handed out in an attempt to educate the prisoners, and Donegan received a book on ventriloquism. Being sick and tired of nothing to do in his cell, he practiced the craft using his right hand. Another prisoner was impressed with his skills and told Donegan of the upcoming prison show. Sometime later, Donegan was doing prison duties by fixing a door in the prison. He then found an old plank of wood from the storeroom. This wood dated back to the original gallows pole on Blackgate Rock. Donegan started to fashion this wood into a handheld puppet, who he named Woody. As the days passed, he continued practicing ventriloquism in his cell. Donegan became obsessed with Woody, and even held conversations with it in his cell. The prison guards thought that he had finally started to go crazy, as he was seen arguing with the puppet on a number of occasions. He soon became skilled enough to perform at the annual prison show. Arnold and Woody got off to a great start with well-received jokes. Although Woody soon began to ridicule Donegan, then mentioned their plans to escape the prison. Donegan was humiliated and quickly ran off the stage. Years passed, until finally Donegan received a new cellmate, Arnold Wesker. Arnold Wesker had always been an introverted and timid person, even as a child. When he was young, his parents took him sightseeing at the Gotham City shipyards. While his parents were distracted, a truck suddenly kills them. Arnold barely escaped death and was deeply traumatized by the accident. This truck was carrying display mannequins, and he became convinced that this tragedy was an omen. Throughout his life, he repressed all of his emotion, and this made him very timid and introverted. This repression eventually resulted in a psychotic breakdown during his adulthood. in which he killed someone during a bar fight. Wesker claimed the murder was completely accidental. He was arrested and sent to Blackgate Prison. Wesker was impressed with Woody and wanted to try him out, but Donegan was very possessive over his puppet and warned Wesker to stay away. That night, Arnold had become miserable with his life and decided to commit suicide. He attempts to hang himself with bed sheets when he hears a voice. To his surprise, he discovered that this voice was coming from the puppet. Arnold begins to question the reality of the situation, but decides to listen. Woody then told him about the hole they were digging in their cell to escape, and asked Wesker to escape with him. Woody threatened to wake up Donegan if he didn't escape with him, so he picked up the puppet. Donegan suddenly wakes up and discovers Arnold talking to his puppet. He then attempts to stab Arnold with a knife he created. Arnold quickly uses the puppet to protect himself, accidentally stabbing the puppet in the eye. Then Donegan discovers the escape route exposed, and the two men then begin to fight. Just as Arnold is almost killed, he suddenly grabs a brick and attacks Donegan. Woody then convinces Arnold to cover Donegan's death by faking his suicide. The two then escape the prison through a tunnel. They soon find a dock guarded by two armed officers. While the guards were distracted by the storm, Woody convinces Arnold to grab a rifle and kill the men. Arnold begins to question his sanity in this moment, but ultimately kills the men. They then get in a boat and successfully escape Blackgate. Sometime later, they arrive in Gotham with their next motive, to find a disguise. They soon find a costume shop and Woody is dressed in old gangster clothes. Woody then demands that Arnold now works for him, and he is sick of his name. He even threatens to kill Arnold if he ever disrespects him, and tells him to call him Scarface. Arnold and Scarface went on to pursue a life of crime in Gotham City. At first, Scarface was not taken seriously until he began to murder anyone who questioned his authority.
Hank, show these two doctors we're serious!
Forgive me.
Scarface would often recruit other criminals and gangsters to form a crew for his missions. He is mostly responsible for large robberies and selling weapons and drugs in Gotham's underworld.
Really? The dummy wants to be the boss of Gotham.
Bingo!
As their crimes escalated, he soon came into contact with Batman. Batman was the first one who was easily able to break through Arnold's mental condition.
Don't do this.
It's out of my hands.
He's the puppet, not you.
Don't listen to him, dummy. He's playing you like a cheap fiddle. Do him already.
Arnold had become terrified of Scarface, and without his puppet by his side, he was harmless. Over many years, Arnold and Scarface became one of Batman's most illustrious villains, and eventually became known as the Ventriloquist. While his insanity can easily be overlooked, this actually makes him incredibly dangerous. Arnold was actually responsible for one of Gotham City's most tragic natural disasters. Gotham suffered from a cataclysmic earthquake, and a mysterious figure named the Quake Master claimed to be responsible. Robin eventually figured out the Quake Master's identity as Arnold's puppet, in a new disguise. Occasionally, Arnold has mental breakdowns, and a new split personality is born.
Hello? Go away. Arnold's busy. I swear, if you bother him, I will gut you.
Arnold is thought to suffer from a strange form of schizophrenic and self-abusive behavior. He has become truly horrified of Scarface and feels like a slave to this puppet. Although the question still remains, is there something supernatural about this puppet? Mysteriously, there is evidence for both claims. Anytime Scarface is left with another person, tragic events will suddenly occur, sometimes even death. Zatanna once described Scarface as a conduit for evil spirits and emotions, but the puppet itself is not cursed. Many years later, Scarface would fall into the hands of others, although that is a story for another time. While the ventriloquist has no special abilities, he is always armed with a machine gun, has powerful connections in Gotham, and his mental instability makes him incredibly dangerous. Please like this video and subscribe for more unknown comic origins.